we're here for our third session of Champion Relationships, and we're really glad that you're with us for this session as well. We've been talking about some important things in relationships, and in this session, we want to get to the basics of communication, right?
Right.
And I just wanted to share a couple thoughts with you from the Word, and then Sherry has some really, really practical things that she's going to share with you. First of all, in Proverbs chapter 6, it talks about the detestable things to the Lord. I just want to read you these passages of Scripture real quick. It says, there are 6 things the Lord hates, 7 that are detestable to Him. Haughty eyes, which is pride, which I talked about the men recently. A lying tongue, hands that shed innocent blood, which is murder. Heart that devises wicked schemes. Feet that are quick to rush to evil. A false witness who pours out lies. And a man who stirs up dissension among the brothers. It was kind of interesting to me, I don't know if you ever thought about this, Sherry, but it's interesting to me that of the 7 detestable things to the Lord, one of the 7 is murder, which you can't really get much worse than that, I guess. 3 of them have to do with the power of what we say. Dissension, stirring up dissension among brothers or among the church.
Right.
Lying tongue. And then the other one was a false witness, somebody who is just not credible and is using that to their own advantage. And the Proverbs has a lot to say about the power of what we say, but one other verse I thought I'd share with us real quick is found in Proverbs chapter 18, verse 21. It says, the tongue, which meaning your speech, has the power of life and death, and those who love it will eat its fruit. I mean, we could preach that one right now, but we don't have time today. But that's a verse I'd really like the church, or like every group, to think about a little bit, is how powerful what we say it is. That literally, in a sense, the power of life and death is in it. And I bet you if you guys talk about it, I bet you they'd find out that they've actually killed things just with what they said. Maybe they've killed relationships, maybe they've killed opportunities. And in the spiritual realm, I think you can even actually defeat God's work in your life just with your attitude.
Right.
And so what we say is really important. And I know that you have some great things to share with everybody on how to be real practical with what we say.
Thanks, Bob. I just wanted to talk a little bit about communication, and today I'm going to make it as simple as I can and just equate it to driving. We have 3 kids, and they all learned how to drive, and the first thing we did with all of our kids when they were learning how to drive was teach them how to have a soft startup. A soft startup is really important in your communication. Did you know that they say that in the first 30 seconds to the first 10 minutes, that will determine the whole outcome of your conversation? So you need to be really careful of how you say things, the intensity of your tone, and your timing. So a soft startup is really important. When my kids were driving, I didn't let them just speed and hit the gas and just take off. Sometimes we get so frustrated or overwhelmed that we just say things and people don't hear our words, they hear the intensity of what we're saying. The other thing that I taught my kids when they were driving the car was to not have the radio on real loud because it's so distracting, but in the same way we need to turn our volume down. Do you know, precious people, if you will just talk in a softer tone in your home, big calm and a peace into your home. We need to not yell and we need to turn the volume down. That'll make a huge difference in your relationships. I taught my kids when they were driving to be careful in the intersection and to look both ways. And I love that example because sometimes we're looking at the same things, but we see it from a different perspective. Bob, if I show you this, what do you see when you look at this bookmark?
I see a pink card with white lettering. It says the character of God.
Right.
That's what I see.
This is a bookmark, and when I look at it, on the back of it, it says that God's awesome, beautiful, faithful. It has a lot of writing and a lot of verses. When Bob looked at it, it says the character of God. We're actually looking at the same thing, but we're looking at it from different angles. So we see the same thing just from a different perspective. And you, in your relationship, a lot of times just need to pause for a moment because you're really looking at the same thing, but you're just seeing it from a different angle. I love the verse in Proverbs 11:29, and it says, the fool who provokes his family to anger and resentment will finally have nothing worthwhile left. He shall be the servant of a wiser man. We don't want to provoke anybody in our family. When you see things from different angles, you need to just stop and respond and not react. You know, Bob, when I taught kids for years, I would tell them to just count to 10 if they were getting overwhelmed. So be careful, in what you're doing. Make sure that you learn to disagree agreeably. You're talking about an issue, but you're committed to that person. So learn to just disagree agreeably. The other thing I would teach my kids driving is to look straight ahead. You don't want to look in the rearview mirror. You can't drive looking in the rearview mirror, looking over your shoulder. And often in relationships, we bring up all this history, and that's never good in a relationship. We'll say things like, you always, or you never. And so Bob and I tended in our relationship, and we still are trying to be careful to have a 30-day rule. If something happened more than 30 days ago, don't bring it up. You don't want to flood your car when you're driving, and sometimes in communicating you need to just stop and you need to pause. We tend to think if we communicate more that will help. When communicating's not working, you just need to stop and not say anything, which takes me to my favorite point in communication. Put on the brakes. Boy, if you can just not say anything, that is so critical in a relationship. Bob, you just talked about the 3 things in Scripture and how it talks about being careful of our words. There's so much power in our words. I mean, in an instant, we can do destruction with our words and destroy relationships. So if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all. I love the verse in Ephesians 4:29 that says, don't let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouth, but only what is helpful for building up others according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen. So you really want to make sure that you're careful about what you say, and if you can't say anything, just walk away and put on the brakes.
Good. Well, that's the first part about communication. Next time in session 4, which is going to be just a minute for us, we're going to talk to you about how to be a better listener. But tonight, focus on what you're saying, watching your words, and I think it's going to be great for you guys.